We're living in challenging times, in interesting times. A coronavirus pandemic, a recession, social unrest, financial instability. So today I'm going to offer you something very different as I speak to two of the world's best motivational and inspirational speakers, Les Brown and Willie Jolley, both from the United States. And hey, we're not even going to talk about property today. But when you come to my podcast, you're probably interested in success, in improving yourself. And property is a vehicle to get more financial success. But today we're going to talk about a more important vehicle, you, your mind, your brain, talking about how to rebound back stronger after the challenges we're going through. So one of my speakers is an inspirational speaker. One's a motivational speaker. What's the difference? Well, listen in and you'll find out, as we'll explain to you in today's episode of the Michael Yardney podcast. So welcome.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's most trusted property commentator who has once again been voted Australia's leading property investment advisor. That's the fifth time he's won a similar award in the last 7 years.
For over 50 years, Les Brown has transformed lives internationally as a fast-talking radio DJ, as a community activist, as a state legislator, and as a motivational guru. Now, his global following call him the world's number one motivational speaker. Now, Les Brown's a mentor, a mindset shifter, and inspiration to millions of people. I've been following him for years, so I'm really proud to have him on the Michael Yardney podcast today, so he can share his wisdom and inspiration with you as we're working our way through challenging times that the coronavirus is causing us. Welcome, Les.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I want to thank you for inviting me to be on your broadcast, and congratulations for the work that you've been doing to help give people a strong sense of self and expand their vision and live their dreams. You've been doing a great deal to change people's lives, and so I'll just hats off to you for the great work you're doing.
Thank you, Les. Clearly, we're living in challenging times, not just here in Australia where I am, but especially in the United States where you are. And I'm seeing a triple threat. There's the coronavirus, the economic downturn, and social upheaval. Now, I know you recognise that life isn't meant to be easy. I've heard that you learned at a very early age, when you were in the fifth grade, your teachers incorrectly labelled you mentally retarded and placed you back into the fourth grade. I guess you learned the hard way that somebody else's opinion of you doesn't really have to be your reality.
This is absolutely true. And it really also speaks to the reality that some people have different learning styles. And my style of learning is hearing, not writing. And so it's easier for me if I hear something. It'll take me longer than most students, but once I got it, I got it. I have a friend of mine that's dyslexic, and he has the same kind of challenge that most people would never begin to believe, as accomplished as he has been, how difficult it took for him because of that challenge of dyslexia, that it held him back for a very long time.
Interestingly, one of my sons has learning difficulty as well. He had difficulty reading and people didn't understand it, but I think it's better understood nowadays. And he's a clearly very intelligent person, become an intelligent adult, but had those troubles as well. Now, Les, life isn't meant to be easy. Success isn't easily achieved. I know some people listening to our chat today, they're going through challenging times. Some are going to be suffering financial hardship related to the cocoon that we're in because of coronavirus. Others are going to suffer personal challenges. So today, I'd like to look at some of the lessons that you've been sharing over the years for success. I'd like you to share these messages. What is the top messages you'd like to offer people to help them get success in these, let's call them interesting times?
What's most important for people to know, and L.C. Robinson said it, things may happen around you and things may happen to you, but the only things that really count are the things that happen in you. And right now, it's a time for people to reflect, to see this, as you said, a cocoon, to work on yourself, to develop yourself, and to make sure that you're stronger and have a greater level of resolve and have a greater skill set when we come out of this. You want to make a radical change. And this is what my daughter calls, Dr. Ona Brown, she calls it God moments, that gaps are from God. That we have time to reflect, to think about ourselves, to rethink our lives, our relationships, and also what we're doing with our lives, where we're going, what direction, what we want to do, what we want to accomplish, what will we leave out, and what we'll take on.
I know one of the things that you believe is important is to believe in yourself. So I guess that's where it all starts, isn't it? In self-belief, not what other people think of you.
Absolutely. They did a study of some top leaders around the world, and they wanted to find out what was the common denominator among them that enabled them to reach their goals. And what they discovered, that 85% of them reached their goals because of their attitude, 15% because of their aptitude. So working on yourself, investing in yourself. They asked Warren Buffett during the recession in the U.S., what's the most important investment one could make? And here's a guy with billions of dollars in real estate, billions of dollars in the stock market. And he said, the most important investment you can make is in yourself. And that's real, because now we're living in this era of what the late Peter Drucker calls the era of the 3 C's: accelerated change, overwhelming complexity, and tremendous competition. So now you have to have a minimum of 3 core competencies, things that you master, that you will be able to call attention to yourself, to your skills and your specialized knowledge in order to control your own personal economy.
There's a theme coming through this. You've actually got to take responsibility, don't you, Les? So it's not up to the government. It's not up to other people. Or it's you. You've got to educate yourself, learn. And while in some people that are in this sort of cocoon that we talked about, take advantage of it. Get set for the next stage rather than give up.
Without any question, giving up is not an option. And as you said, some people looking to the government. I don't think the government is going to rescue us from what we're going through right now. This is a place where we have never been before. We're in uncharted waters. And so this calls for all hands on deck. Everybody figuring out, what is it I want to do next? Not only just next, but what I'm going to do in the now. How is it that I'm going to make a radical change in the now? How is it that I'm going to prepare myself or deepen the relationships that I need that can take me where I want to go in the now? And so when we become mindful of what we have to do and who we have to be, the possibilities are unlimited as to what we can accomplish and what comes out of that.
Well, you said a moment ago, a lot of it has to do with your attitude, but with the continual bombardment of negative news in the media, how do you overcome the negativity? How do you stop yourself sinking down thinking about those sort of things, Les?
I'm so glad you asked that question. I spent one day binging on news. It's addictive if you don't watch yourself. And
yes.
When I turned the television off, I was in my room by myself and I sneezed. And I ran downstairs. Wait a minute, that was my sneeze. I came back up and I still got the Lysol can to start spraying. Okay, so part of what we have to do is you got to turn it off. You got to turn it off. We don't have the mental bandwidth to take all the stuff that's going on in the world. Handle what you can handle. I love the St. Francis of Assisi that said, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's what we have to do, control the things that we can control, but not take in and inundate ourselves with things that's going to have us running scared. That's not going to work. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind.
Well, I think a lot of people believe that media's job is to educate them, and it's not. I guess it's in some ways to entertain you. In some ways it's to get you to click on it. So they know that we are more likely to click on the negative messages, Les, aren't we, than on the positive messages. We're somehow or other hardwired to chase those.
We've been conditioned to believe that if it bleeds, it leads. And so therefore, what we have to do is make a conscious, deliberate, determined effort to program ourselves for success. We can't control the thoughts that come in our minds, but we can control the thoughts that we dwell on. When I get up in the morning, first thing I do, I say, Lord, whatever I face today, together, you and I can handle it. And as a scripture that I love, all things work together for good for those who love God and for those who are called according to his purpose. The next thing I do, I write down 7 things that I'm grateful for, because I'm a 27-year prostate cancer conqueror because of God's grace and mercy. And
Well
every
done.
day I wake up and there's not a chalk outline around my body. It's a great day. I always say, people say, how you doing? I'm great and I'm grateful because I'm still here. Regardless of what's going in my life, what's going on, I'm still here. I still got a pulse. I'm still able to make a difference with my life. And so at 75, I'm focusing on building a legacy and living a more impactful life because I feel that I have not done my best work yet. There's still more for me to do and to leave the world in better shape for my children and for my 15 grandchildren and for my 4 great-grandsons.
Well, I don't have any grandchildren yet, but I have 10 grandchildren, so I'm catching up to you. Les, I think another factor is the people you hang around, the people that you're with. You've got to be careful who you're listening to because you do become very much like the people that you're close to.
Without any question, one of the things I teach people is practice the principle of OQP, only quality people. I had a gentleman who challenged me in his class, and he taught me the value of upgrading your relationships. My son, John Leslie, who's a speaker and author, and he said, you must ask yourself the question, who should I count on and who should I count out? That life is like an elevator, and at different times you have to stop and let certain people off, that they can't go with you the higher you go up. And so this is a time that Jim Rohn once said that look at your relationships and ask the question, what is it doing to me? Am I growing mentally and emotionally and spiritually? Am I a better person? Is it enhancing me financially? You need to know the role that people are playing in your life. There are 2 types of relationships. There are toxic relationships and nourishing relationships. Toxic relationships, they drain you. They're highly critical of you. They compromise your ability to grow and to develop. Nourishing relationships, they hold you accountable to a higher standard. They stretch you, they challenge you to go higher. And so we have to look at these relationships and decide that there's certain relationships that we no longer need to be around because they will compromise your ability to live your greatest life.
Now, as somebody who motivates people, I know you've mentioned in the past that you should not die with some great ideas and some great thoughts in you. And I heard you say just a moment ago that at 75, you still haven't done your best work. Tell us about that.
Well, one of the things I do when I speak, I say, live full and die empty. That the ideal situation for a man or woman to die, have family members praying with them as they cross over. But imagine, if you will, being on your deathbed and standing around your bed, the ghost of the dreams, the ideas, the abilities, the talents given to you by life, but you, for whatever reason, you never pursued those dreams. You never used those talents. You never used those gifts. And there they are standing around your bed, looking at you with large, angry eyes, saying, we came to you, and only you could have given us life. And now we must die with you forever. My very good friend who passed, Dr. Miles Monroe, he said, rob the cemetery of your genius, of your talents, of your inventions, and the things that have been placed in you that you brought to the planet. And I think that's very important that we do that.
Another thing I know you talk about is reading and continuously learning. You must have a very big library.
Yes, the average person reads 1 book a year. And I decided, after hearing an interesting lecture by Brian Tracy, he and I just did an interview together today, just an incredible icon in self-development industry. He said, if you read 1 book a year, you're going to be like everybody else. He said, but knowledge is the new currency. Discipline yourself to read 1 book a month. so that in 5 years, when the average person read 5 books, you'd have read 60 books. That will make you an expert. So I discipline myself to read 30 to 40 pages a day, to read a minimum of 3 books a month. And considering the fact, as I said, that knowledge is a new currency, that this time where we are in this space, we have to think like Robert Schuller said, that we have to expand or you are expendable. You have to stay ahead of artificial intelligence. And so people now see, when you look at just in America alone, over 40,500,000 people have lost their jobs. Just here, that's not even counting what's going to happen when artificial intelligence is going to eliminate more industries. And so people have to discipline themselves and honor themselves by making the commitment to stay ahead of what's going on, to be on top of their game, to live their greatest life.
Well, I agree with you. And in my book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits, one of the habits of the wealthy people, the rich, is that they read, but the poor actually read for entertainment while the rich read for education. So it's not just what you read. Sorry, it's not just that you read, but it's also what you put in your mind. And it doesn't have to be reading, because I'm an auditory learner like you are. So I actually prefer listening. I listen to podcasts. There's YouTube. There's lots of ways of learning today, rather than the old library that you used to listen to in the car that Brian Tracy talked about. I was a friend of Brian's too. I met him personally when he came to Australia. He's been a great mentor to a lot of people, hasn't he?
Yes, without any question. We had a good time today, and we're going to be doing some work together in July. Reading is so important. Unfortunately, the media has created an entertainment-driven culture globally. People spend more money on entertainment than they do on things that can educate and empower them. And so we have to decide to take charge of our lives. We have to decide to make responsible choices, to do the things that's necessary, that will expand our vision of ourselves to what's possible, to decrease the level of unconscious self-loathing that causes us to engage in self-destructive behavior, and increase our sense of worthiness, where we come to believe that life is God's gift to us, and how we live our lives is our gift to God.
It almost goes back to the first thing we spoke about believing in yourself, because a lot of people don't have the confidence. They reject themselves. They don't think they're able to get to the next level, to whether it's learn a new job, a new skill, because, as you say, the workplace is going to be very different in the future, with artificial intelligence taking a lot of the jobs that we are currently doing.
Well, the reason that most people operate in that limited thinking of themselves is because we live in a world where we're told more about our limitations rather than our potential. We don't get conscious work like the work that you're doing every day in church or colleges, universities, telling them that they have the potential to do more. That's not regularly accessible to the average person. So people have to make a conscious, deliberate, determined effort to program themselves for success. I was labeled educable mentally retarded, but I got a mentor who taught me that someone's opinion of me did not have to become my reality. And I adopted him as my spiritual father. I followed him around. I watched him, and I wanted to be like him. So we have to look at ourselves, look at where we want to go, and attach ourselves and develop relationships with people that represent those things that we want to accomplish in our lives, and people who have trained eyes that can see what we can't see. Mike Williams, he wrote the book called The Road to Your Best Stuff. He has been my mentor for 51 years, and he saw this, Les Brown, because before I saw him, because you can't read the label when you're locked in the box. And so it's very important to upgrade your relationships, to have people around you that can take you to a place within yourself that you can't go by yourself, and constantly challenge yourself to raise the bar and stretch to become a risk taker. Viscott said, if you're not willing to risk, you can't grow. And if you can't grow, you can't become your best. And if you can't become your best, you can't be happy. And if you can't be happy, then what else is there?
Now, there's a few times you mentioned mentors. I think it's also important to remember that we are mentors for our children and our grandchildren and our great grandchildren, like you said. So, this is also a way of leaving a legacy, leaving something for the future generations.
Yes, our goal is to live a life that will outlive us. And Harsman said we should be ashamed to die until we've made some major contribution to humankind. And we are mentors to others, but we also require mentors for ourselves because we have to stay sharp and be on the cutting edge. And I'm 75, but I don't feel 75. And so I believe that we have two ages. We have a chronological age and a biological age. And my best speech has not been given. The best training of training speakers and having voices of hope has not been done to the degree that I want to do that. And so I'm still stretching, I'm still reaching.
Well, I look forward to keep hearing your messages. Now, you're shortly going to be doing a virtual seminar in Australia. What's the message you want to get to us over here in Australia?
People will learn how to begin to live a larger life. Most of us are living a small life unconsciously. They're going to learn how to increase their impact, how to increase their sales if they're involved in sales. They're going to learn how to take their revenue up. They're going to learn how to create wealth. The computer that we're talking on right now, in 2007, Time magazine said it was the person of the year. Why? Because one, you can do e-commerce. You can do a global business. It eliminates geography. You can do so many things that was not possible before the introduction of that. And so now we have the tools to live a bigger life, to make a greater impact, more like any generation in our time. And so now we have to all take it up to the next level, challenge ourselves and stretch ourselves.
Well, Les, I'd like to finish with one of your quotes. Change is difficult, but it's essential to survive.
Without any question. If you want to achieve more, we're in this place where Einstein said that thinking that has brought me this far has created some problems that this thinking can't solve. And so we have to raise the bar on ourselves. We have to take responsibility for the kind of life that we want. George Bernard Shaw said the people that make it in this world, they look around for the circumstances that they want. And if they can't find them, they create them. And this is where we are, being more responsible, more engaged, and being actively involved in life and expanding how we experience it.
Les, you've written lots of books. I'd love to get our audience to learn more about your lessons. What book should they be looking for on Amazon?
The book that I've written that's really for this time is called You've Got to Be Hungry, The Greatness Within to Win. And it teaches people how to handle tough times and how to navigate the storms of life that we're going through right now and live their greatest life. It's going to transform their life. The people that have read it said, I've never read anything like this. And thank you so much for writing it.
Well, Les, I'm going to put a link to this in the show notes, and I look forward to buying it on Amazon myself. This is the time we've got to learn. We've got to get new ideas. So let's learn from Les Brown, who's taught millions of people how to change their lives. Thank you for your time, Les.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
It's my pleasure to have Dr. Willie Jolley as my guest on the podcast today. He's been called the most powerful speaker, singer, and author combination in the world today. Dr. Jolley was named one of the outstanding 5 speakers in the world by Toastmasters International. Now, interestingly, only 50 speakers worldwide have ever been given that honour, including Colin Powell, Nelson Mandela, Margaret Thatcher. So you're in for a treat today. Welcome, Dr. Jolley.
Well, thank you so much. It's just a pleasure to be on with you. Thank you for having me. And greetings to all my friends down under. And as I love to say when I come there, I say, good eye, mate. Good on you, mate.
You've got the accent right. Well done. Now, Willie, we're living in challenging times, not just here in Australia, but especially in the United States where you are. We've got that triple threat, the coronavirus, the economic downturn, and social upheaval. But some people say that the crisis is a time when only the strong will survive. However, I've heard you say that at times of crisis, it's those who adapt that are going to survive.
Absolutely. The word crisis is a unique word because it is a word that has two meanings at the same time. John F. Kennedy said a wonderful speech back in 1959 about crisis. He said that crisis is a meaning that has dual implications that seem opposite but are very true. You have great danger on one side, but great opportunity on the other side. And those who are willing to think positive and to act proactively are those who will be able to take full advantage of the opportunities. So we look back in history, and there have been a lot of people who said, you know what, this is a tough time. This is a challenging time. But it's also a great opportunity time. A guy named Disney created Disney productions in the depression, and many of the companies we know now, Airbnb and Uber, all started in the Great Recession. So out of these challenging times come great opportunities for those who are willing to look at it from a different perspective and not just hunker down and cower in fear, but look at it and say, you know what, I'm going to be positive and upbeat and enthusiastic and excited about the opportunities that will come about as a result of this time of crisis. So you're right. We're in a crisis. We've got multiple crises. We've got pandemic. We've got economic downturn. We've lost millions of jobs. We got racial strife in America and social upheaval all over the world. In fact, I was on an interview yesterday and I said, I'm waiting for the locusts to show up.
Yeah. It
So,
is what we call interesting times, and the media is continuously pummeling us with negative messages. Now, many people think the media's job is to educate us. It seems not. It seems like it's their job to, I guess, entertain us and get the clickbait. So, how do we overcome this? How do we get past all the negativity, Willie?
well, I tell people, and I'm in the media. I'm on radio I have the number one self-help show in America, the Willie Jolley Wealthy Way
Yeah.
show on Sirius XM. But I only focus on positive information. I refuse to talk about negative. I refuse to talk about politics. I refuse to talk about anything that would be controversial. I want to encourage people to do their best, be their best, and achieve their best. Now, about the media has an old saying that says, if it bleeds, it leads. And so if it's going to be bad news, that's what they're going to put. It's hard for them to put good news on the front page. So that's why a few months ago, right at the start of the pandemic, I started a new Saturday weekly, Saturday morning in America. I guess that would be Saturday night, your time, or early Sunday morning, program called Jolly Good News. Because in a time of bad news, sad news, depressing news, despondent news, we need some good news. Let me tell you why. Because good news has an impact on your psyche. It has an impact on your thinking. It has an impact on your actions. I'll give you an example about the impact of good news. If you woke up in the morning and it was rainy and cold and clammy and wet and icky, what does your body want to do? Stay in the bed. Am I right about it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you woke up and the birds were singing, the sun was shining, it was a beautiful, glorious day, you don't want to miss any of that day. So you get up and get going. The same is true for your psyche. If you wake up and hear how many people get killed, how many fires there were, how bad the terroristic threats are, how bad the economy is, oh, woe is me, it puts a cloud over your brain, over your thinking. But if you woke up and you heard something like my daily 1 minute motivational messages that I do on radio in America, one of these is that's very popular is every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up and those that must run faster than the fastest lion, or it will be killed and eaten. Also, every morning in Africa, a lion wakes up, and those that must outrun the slowest gazelle, or it will starve to death. It does not matter whether you are a lion or a gazelle. When the sun comes up, you better be running.
I
Now,
like that
think
one.
about how that gets in your spirit, how that
Yes,
gets in your
yes,
thinking. And you
yes.
say, you know what? It is a good day. This is a good time to be alive. And I'm going to make the most of this good day that I've been given. Let me tell you something. Many people will complain about what's going on. But as my friend Zig Ziglar used to say, every day above ground is a good day. You don't believe it? Try missing one.
Yes. So it's what you hear, what you listen to, but Willie, I think it's also who you hang around, the people you associate with, because you become very much like them, don't you?
Yeah, very much so. You become who you hang with. You hang with nine losers, you're going to be number 10. That's for sure. So you got to be very careful who you hang around with and who you associate with, because they will have an influence on you, and you can be thought to just pick up little habits from them, how they talk, how they walk, how they act. And so what we encourage people to do is only hang out with quality people, people who are big thinkers, people who are going places. There was a study that with Brian Tracy, when I had him on my XM show, on my podcast, he said that if you will look at the measurement of the top 5 people you hang around with, that will be about the same income level you'll be in. And so you want to increase your income. I'm not saying get rid of your folks who are not making money, but you do want to start expanding your network. And remember this, write this one down. Your network determines your net worth. So you want to make sure that you are hanging around, associating, learning from, communicating with people who are going places, who have achieved things. I hang out with some gentlemen every Saturday morning when I'm in town, and we've been doing it by Zoom since the pandemic. Millionaires, multimillionaires, and they talk for 2 hours about life. And in that time, every week, I'm taking notes from these gentlemen because it gives me new insight. It's like the old saying, iron sharpens iron. So those who want to be better will hang around people who are better than them. I remember when I first started playing tennis, I love playing tennis. And when I first started playing tennis, the instructor said, play with people who are better than you. They will make you better.
Mm,
And so
yes.
I am same within business. I hang around, I play with people who are smarter, wealthier than I am. They'll make me smarter. They'll make me wealthier because they'll give me little tips, little ideas. They'll tell me what things I should read, what things I should be looking at for my investments and for growing my success. So hang around positive people. That's why I'm so excited about this event that we're doing in in Australia on Sunday the 28th. I want to encourage people to come and be a part of that. It's absolutely free. It's me and my buddy Les Brown. One of the people who's had the greatest impact on my life is Les Brown. When I started speaking, everybody in the world knew about Les Brown. I was a new speaker, and someone told me he was coming to my city, and I ran down and got a ticket to go see him. And that evening when he was speaking, I was in the second row from the front, and I'm taking notes. And then he asked at some point toward the end, he said, any questions? I jumped up. I went to the microphone. I asked him a question. I don't even remember what the question was, but it must have been good because he said, young man, that was a great question. I want to meet you when this is over. I
Gee.
said, great. So after it was over, they rushed him off the stage and he was signing books and so forth. And I'm waiting patiently to meet Les Brown. And as soon as he signed the last book, they whisked him off into a car. He had somewhere else to go. And I didn't get my opportunity to meet him. So I went to the promoter. I said, hey, look, he told me he wanted to meet me after this was over. And I want to meet him. What hotel is he at? And she said, oh, it's at such and such a hotel. I said, okay. And that was about 10 o'clock. I went to the hotel. I sat in the lobby of that hotel till 2:30 a.m. when he walked in. And I said, Mr. Brown, you said you wanted to meet me when this was over. Here I am. He said, "You've been sitting here since the event?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Wow." And that night, he became my friend, my mentor at that point. And over the years, not only has been my mentor, we've toured together, we've traveled together, we've done events together. I think he's the greatest motivational speaker on the planet. I consider myself to be one of the best inspirational speakers. And I'm very grateful that now he'll call me for advice. He'll say, "Willie, I need your advice on this or that." So the student became the peer, and that's a big deal.
That's a great lesson in there. And in fact, I've just had the pleasure of having a chat with him just before I'm having my chat with you. Now, we're living through, as we started to say, interesting times, but you and I have learned from the challenges we've had in life that every adversity creates opportunities, carries opportunities. The challenge is to find that seed of opportunity there, isn't it?
It is, and yet it is always there. In the book Think and Grow Rich, which is the book that changed my life. I was a for those who don't know, I'm a I've been named one of the top 5 speakers in the world. I've been inducted in the Speaker Hall of Fame. I've been named a legend of the speaking industry. I've been named one of the top 5 leadership speakers. But I didn't start this way. I started as a nightclub singer who got fired from my nightclub job, replaced by a karaoke machine because it was more cost effective. and and I didn't know what I was going to do. I took a job with the Washington D.C. public school system as a drug prevention coordinator, talking to little kids about staying away from drugs. From the little kids, the teachers would say, "Can you come to my teachers group?" Someone there would say, "Can you come to my church?" And it could continue to grow. And then, as I said, I met Les Brown. He invited me to be on tour with him and Gladys Knight. They introduced me to radio people. I got a radio show. It got popular, got syndicated, and then it changed over to Sirius XM national satellite, and then it became the #1 satellite radio show in the country for self-help. Then a book publisher heard me and invited me to write a book. I wrote a book called It Only Takes a Minute to Change a Life, became a national bestseller. Then I wrote a book called A Setback as a Setup for a Comeback that became a global bestseller, then turned setbacks into greenbacks, became a global bestseller, then An Attitude of Excellence, and then my marriage book, Make Love, Make Money, Make It Last with my wife. And we all, and then in 1999 I was named one of the top 5 speakers in the world, all because I got fired and replaced by a karaoke machine. And I saw when I got fired that there was a seed. In the book Think and Grow Rich, it said in every adversity, there's a seed of equivalent or greater opportunity and creativity. No, so I'm gonna do something right now, Michael. I want to give everybody a gift. One of the things that helped me when I got fired, someone gave me that book, Think and Grow Rich. I would not have known about that seed of possibility without that book. And so that book blessed me. Well, in about 10 years ago now, I was called by the Napoleon Hill Foundation to be one of the 53 thought leaders on a special program about how that book had changed people's lives globally. And that book has made more millionaires than any other book other than the Bible. And so I want to give all your listeners a free copy of that book, Think and Grow Rich. My gift.
Fantastic. It's changed a lot of people's lives, and it's in the library of all successful people. So
Yep.
that's a really great gift. How do
Well,
they get it,
well, they
Willie?
just go to, if they'll go to wjspeaks.com/gift, wjspeaks.com/gift,
Now,
and they'll
thank
get it.
you. We will put that in the show notes so people don't have to remember it because they're possibly listening to this. Well, in the old days, they used to listen to podcasts driving or in the gym. I'm not sure where they're listening to them nowadays. They're probably listening to it at home, aren't they?
Yes, people are listening to podcasts all over. And what a great thing. We live in a time where there's unparalleled challenges because we've
Yep.
not seen a pandemic in our lifetime, but also great opportunities,
Yep.
technologies. Who
Yep.
would have thought 20 years ago that I could be talking to you and having a conversation and that we could be recording it via the fact that you're in Australia, I'm in Washington, D.C., in America, and yet we sound like we're in the same room talking to each other. That's a great technology. And all of the new things that we have available, computers. I remember when my first computer, when I started speaking, it was unheard of to have a home computer. So what a great time we live in. Now, what do you do with it? That's the next thing. What do you do with it? That's why one of the things I've been talking about on these podcasts and on these programs and on the advertisements and the promotions about the event this Sunday and there in Australia is one of my goals is to help people change their mindset. What happened where it took me from a broke, busted singer to one of the top speakers in the world is I shifted my mindset. I had to lift my mindset and then shift my mindset. And when I was willing to lift and shift, I started growing. I started thinking different. I started reading different books. I invested in myself. I went to seminars and I started making a commitment to invest in me. I heard a story one time when I was on a Get Motivated tour with me and Les. A guy was sharing a story from the stage, and he talked about how he went to he and his buddy were broke. They were almost broke, and they heard about this seminar that was coming up soon, and they went to this seminar, and the guy was on stage and he was giving such great information, and they were writing notes. Then the guy said, look, I've given you part of what I know, but I've got so much more. I just don't have time to tell you because my time is up. Look, I want to make sure you offer you something. I've got a package here. It's $1,500. It's $1,500, and it's my best products that you can invest and you can come and get. Well, they walked down there to look it over, and the guy said, you know what? I only got $1,540 in my bank account. That's all I got. And his friend said, well, I know you're not going to spend your $15 on this. He said, and the guy thought for a minute. He said, yes, I am. And he took out his checkbook and wrote a check for $1,500. He said, you're going to pay $1,500? You think this stuff is worth $1,500? And the guy who was writing the check said, I don't know if these materials are worth $1,500, but I do know that I am worth $1,500. He said, I'm going to invest in me. He bought that $1,500 worth of materials. He went on home. He invested time. Then after he invested money, time into those materials, learning, changing his thinking. That when he was on that stage that day, he had gone from that broke guy who had $40 in his checking account to become a multimillionaire with a home in Phoenix, Arizona, a home in Miami, Florida, and a jet to take him between the two homes. It's possible to change your thinking. That's why we want you to come join us on Sunday. I've got materials that will help you. I've got resources that will help you. I've got content that will help you. Les Brown is going to tell you how he went from being born and adopted as a child to becoming the greatest motivational speaker, being put back from the 7th grade to the 6th grade, back from the 11th grade to the 10th grade, being labeled educationally, mentally retarded, and being on a trash man as a trash truck. He worked on a trash truck out of high school to go on to become one of the greatest motivational speakers. It's possible for us. And if it's possible for us, it's possible for you, wherever you are listening right now. I'm encouraging you, wherever you are listening, that you make a commitment to join us, and then you make a commitment to invest in yourself with your time, because the seminar this week, and it's free, but the investment of time is going to make the difference.
So we can't change the situation. We can't change the crisis that's happening, but we can change our response to it, can't we?
We can. We can. We can't control what happens to us. I always like to ask people, how many of you control what people say or do? Okay. How many control what happens from somebody else? What's the one thing in life you can control? Yourself. You can't control the time. You can't control the weather. You can't control what other people say or do. But you can control you and your response to all of those. And you can choose to be happy. It's your choice. And so I love what Maya Angelou said. She said, if there's something in your life you don't like, change it. But if you cannot change it, change your attitude. And that's what we are here to do. Change your thinking, change your attitude so you can win. How many want to win? I know I do. And I want more of you to do it. Yes.
Sure. Now, you've written a lot of books, and I'm going to put a link to them in the show notes so people can go to Amazon and get them. But the one that you've called A Setback is a Setup for a Comeback, I think that sounds very relevant for the current times. What message would you want to give people about that book?
Yeah, that book I think is the most powerful book I have ever written. Now, I've written a lot of good books. It only takes a minute, to change your life. 1 minute motivational messages. Turn setbacks into greenbacks. By my XM people who had gone from broke and busted and disgusted to becoming millionaires and billionaires. The 7 principles that I extracted from all of their stories that worked in every instance. An attitude of excellence. I worked with Ford Motor Company when they were on the brink of bankruptcy and help them go from the brink of bankruptcy to being able to reject the government bailout to go on to billion-dollar profits, and how we were able to do that with an attitude of excellence. Make love, make money, make it last. My wife and I are about to celebrate 35 years of marriage, actually on the 28th. And so we're going to
Congratulations.
thank you, but we haven't had an argument in over 33 years.
Really?
We have not had an argument in 33 years. Now, someone asked in an interview, "You've never argued?" I said, "Well, no. We haven't had an argument in 33 years. Those first couple of years are like World War III." But we learned some principles that worked, and we learned them and we put them to use, and we put them in the book. So if make love, make money, make it last. Now, all of those are great books. They help people. They change people's lives. They're phenomenally impactful. But a setback is a setup for a comeback is the most powerful. Why? Because everybody is going to have a setback. Everybody.
Yes.
You're going to have
Yes.
a setback, not if, it's when. And so when you do, what do you need to know? What do you need to do? When I wrote that book, I interviewed people who had setbacks. Some of them were famous, like Lee Iacocca, John Travolta, Wally famous, but there's some who weren't. Like the young man I interviewed who had a small business, 2 small children, had a setback, went bankrupt, lost his house, lost his car, ended up living on the street. Many thought that would be the end of the story, but he came back and built a company called Daymark, one of the biggest merchandising companies
Mm.
in the country and the world.
Yeah.
Or how about the lady who went to the doctor one day? They told her, "You have terminal breast cancer. You got 6 months to live." She was a math teacher. She said, "I can't die. I got too many children to teach. I love teaching math." They said, "You got 6 months." They sent her home to die. She said, "No, I'm not going to die. I'm going to live for 25 more years." They said, "It's conclusive. You got 6 months. You got terminal breast cancer. You got 6 months." She said, "You know what? I'm going to live for 25 more years." She lived for 34 more years, and she beat cancer 4 times. When I interviewed her, she said, "Tell the people in your book that I might have cancer, but cancer has never had me." And so tell them one other thing. Doctors can give you the diagnosis, but God gives you the prognosis. These are the stories that come out of that book that inspire people and give them the principles that they can use to turn their setback. It might not be cancer. It might not be getting fired. It might not be going through a tough time, but you're going to have some kind of setback. And that book gives you principles. Listen to this one, Michael. Methods are many, principles are few. Methods may change, but principles never do. If you throw a rock up 100 times, it comes down 100 times because of a principle called gravity. And these books that I've written, I've been making sure that they're filled with principles that work over and over again. In fact, you mentioned going to Amazon. I'm giving even better than that. If people will go to wjspeaks.com/success, wjspeaks.com/success, they can get either not only the books autographed and sent to them in physical form, or they can get a full digital package. Go to their computer, hit it, get it. It downloads right on your computer, and you're in Australia. You don't have to pay for shipping. You don't have to pay for anything. Bam, digital, and it's on sale right now. It's half price right now from what it regularly is. So just go to wjspeaks.com/success.
Well, I'll definitely put that link in the show notes as well. And I think it is important to keep educating yourself, but you've got to be careful who you educate yourself from. And clearly, you've helped a lot of people get to the next level. That's important. Now, a while ago, you made a comment about Les Brown being a motivational speaker and you being an inspirational speaker.
Right.
What's the difference?
Yeah, that's great question. Motivation deals with your head. Les is one of the most powerful speakers to get in your head and help you see how he went from a trash man to becoming a great speaker, and he gives you those concepts. Inspiration deals with your heart. You ever seen maybe a soccer game when a player goes down and his teammates rally and inspired, and they say, "We're going to win one for him," and they play above their heads. What I do is I inspire people. Let me tell you what the word inspire means. It's taken from the Greek word to breathe anew. When you go to the hospital and somebody say they expired at 10 a.m., the breath of life went out of them. But if you heard somebody inspired, that means the breath of life came into them. And my job as an inspirational speaker is to inspire new breath into people, inspire new thinking into people, and let them be uplifted and inspired and empowered to say, you know what? I might have lost my job. My husband might have left me. My money might be all exhausted, but I feel anew. I can win now. And it's inside an inspiration. Now you take motivation from Les and inspiration from me, you put them together, you're going to be on fire and you're going to change your life and potentially change the world. So I'm excited about being able to be with folks this week.
Well, I really appreciate it because you have inspired me. You've inspired me to want to listen to that online seminar, but also to get your bundle of books, which I'm going to do at wjspeaks.com/success.
Yes.
But let's finish off with one message that you'd like to give the Australians to finish off our chat today.
What my favorite story, Michael, is
Yes,
one
please.
I'm going to share on Sunday. I share it every time I get the opportunity because it was a life-changing experience for me, Michael. I was a new speaker, had no books, no tapes, no radio, no television, had no credentials to be a speaker, struggling to keep the lights on, struggling to keep the phones on. I'd make sales calls and people would hang up in my face. And I wouldn't make any more calls that day because how many of you have ever been rejected and you hate that feeling? I'd take 2 or 3 days for me to get my gumption back up, my gander back up. Finally, one day I made my calls and the guy on the other end, the first call said, I like your energy. I'm having a meeting. You'd be the perfect opening act. Are you would you love to do it? I said, yeah. He said, are you available? Yeah. He told me what the budget was much more than I usually even charge. He said, we'll fly you to Florida and you can speak. I went to Florida. I gave the speech. They gave me my check. They gave me a standing ovation. They gave me my check. And then I said, I'm so excited. I went back to the airport feeling good. Got on that flight, flying back home to DC, feeling good. I pulled the check out a second time, but when I looked at the check the second time, I got depressed because the money was already gone. It was allocated. I owed the water company, the electric company. I owed everybody, and the money was already gone. And I started having a pity party right there, right in my seat. An older gentleman across the aisle must have sensed I was struggling. He struck up a conversation with me. He told me he was a minister. He lectured every day in a different city about health and wealth. I said, you fly every day? He said, yes. I said, you speak every day? He said, yes. We talked for a few more minutes. Then, Michael, he asked me a question that changed the trajectory of my future. He said, young man, how old do you think I am? I looked him up and down. I said, I think you're about 60. He smiled. He took off his glasses. He looked me in my eye. He said, young man, I'm 88 years old. I'm 88. And my best is yet to come. In that moment, everything shifted in my mind. If an 88-year-old man could have the optimism, believe that his best days were in front of him and not behind him, what did I have to whine and cry and complain about? And I went home with a new attitude. And I got on that phone and started making sales calls. And if people say no, I'd say next. They say, I'm not interested. I'd say, you're not the right one. Well, 25 years have gone by. I've been inducted in the Speaker Hall of Fame, named one of the top 5 speakers in the world, named one a legend of the speaking industry. And I want to say to all of you who are listening to me today, that your best is yet to come. Your best is yet to come. Your best is yet to come. It's been a privilege and a pleasure, a treat and a treasure, a joy beyond measure for me to be on this show with you, Michael, and to have this opportunity to speak to my good friends and all my new friends down under in Australia, New Zealand, and let you know I love you and I'm grateful for you. And I hope to see you on my online program on Sunday. And for sure, your best is yet to come. God bless you.
What a way to finish. Dr. Willie Jolley, I can clearly understand why he has been named one of the outstanding 5 speakers of the world. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Jolley.
Thank you for having me. God bless you. Have a great day.
Well, I told you today's show would be different, but with all the negative news around, I thought having some motivation, having some inspiration would be beneficial for you. And if you did get some benefit from it, why not tell somebody about this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast? Use the podcast share button on whichever podcast app you're using, or tell somebody about the Michael Yardney podcast. I'll be back again real soon. Twice a week I bring you the Michael Yardney podcast, and in between you can keep up to date with me on social media. Just look for Michael Yardney. In the meantime, have a great week. Make it a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favorite Android app as the Michael Yardney podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?